The helicopter was not supposed to be on fire. It wasn't a big fire, to be fair, more of a suggestion, a polite orange flicker licking along the rear housing, as if the aircraft had developed a minor interest in self-destruction but hadn't yet committed to the idea. The problem was not the size of the fire. The problem was that helicopters perform best while remaining on fire. From a distance, one might have mistaken it for reflected sunset on the tail assembly, some harmless Mediterranean glow catching polished black metal. Up close, however, flames are difficult to romanticize when they are eating through wiring. Guy Fawkes leaned forward in the open side door, holding onto the frame with one hand and a length of nylon rope with the other, squinting past the rain and the rotor wash at the coastline unspooling beneath them. The Mediterranean had looked expensive and indifferent earlier that day. Now, though, lightning rolled through black clouds overhead, illuminating towering curtains of water and revealing the white crests of waves large enough to toss yachts about like bath toys. Guy had crossed the Atlantic in submarines, flown through sandstorms in the Middle East, and recently spent a memorable hour escaping a collapsing underwater city beneath the Chesapeake. Like now, he always took a moment to reflect on the view, in case it was his last, and appreciate it. Looking out at the storm from a burning helicopter hardly qualified as his worst evening. It was, however, making a respectable attempt. Every few seconds, another gust drove sheets of rain across the windscreen so violently that the burning aircraft seemed to disappear inside its own halo of sparks and steam. The pilot, visible only intermittently through the cockpit partition whenever lightning turned the cabin blue-white, was shouting in French. "What did he say?" asked Valentina. Guy listened for a second. "I think he regrets taking this job." "That makes two of us." Below them, the yacht they were hunting appeared only for an instant before darkness swallowed it again, climbing the face of an enormous wave that made $20 million of naval architecture look absurdly fragile. Valentina braced a foot against the bench and adjusted the strap of a waterproof bag. Her hair whipped across her face in the wind, and she shook it aside in annoyance. "Just so we're clear," she said, raising her voice above the rain and the roar of the engine. "This is a really bad idea." Guy nodded as if discussing wine pairings. "Agreed." "And we're still doing it." "Yep." She leaned slightly to look past him at the flicker of flame licking toward the tail. "And the helicopter's on fire." "It's not on fire," he said. "It's thinking about fire." Val stared at him for a long beat and then shook her head with the resigned affection of someone who had accepted at a fundamental level that this was her life now. Flames streamed from the tail boom in long orange ribbons that vanished into the rain. The pilot shouted something else, and Valentina squinted at the back of his helmet. "What did he say?" she shouted. Guy answered, "I think he said he blames you personally." "That's more encouraging." "Why?" "Means he's still thinking clearly." Another violent gust struck the aircraft broadside, throwing the pilot against his restraint and the passengers crashing into the opposite side of the cabin. The grappling hook hanging from the coiled rope clanged against the floor, and then the side, glancing off of Valentina's shin. She winced and caught it before it could swing again. "You okay?" Guy shouted, his cool finally shaken. "Your throw," she said, handing him the grappling hook. "My throw," he nodded, slipping back into character. She peered through the rain. "You have one chance." "I do my best under unreasonable pressure. I've noticed." Below them, glimpsed only in brief flashes of lightning between curtains of rain, the sleek white super yacht would have looked magnificent under normal circumstances. Tonight, however, it looked very small. Every time the sea lifted beneath it, the bow climbed almost vertically before crashing down again in an explosion of foam that vanished into the darkness. Now it rose once more between the waves. Valentina tightened the waterproof strap securing a black satchel against her back. She usually became quieter as situations became more dangerous, concentrating all unnecessary conversation into a single raised eyebrow or an expression that suggested she was mentally recalculating everyone's survival odds. For some reason, though, she was being unusually glib. Rain plastered dark strands of hair across her face. She brushed them aside impatiently and glanced toward the burning tail section. The fire now seems fully committed. Guy dragged his way back to the open door, squinting against the rain, and followed her gaze. The flames had indeed become more ambitious. Pieces of glowing composite material detached themselves from the tail boom and disappeared into the storm like tiny falling comets. Below them, the yacht emerged once more from the darkness as lightning shattered the sky to the west. Guy swung the grappling hook experimentally once, feeling the additional weight of water in the rope, then waited. Timing was everything. The helicopter bounced violently upward as another wave lifted the yacht below. Too early. He waited again. Lightning flashed. The yacht climbed. The helicopter descended. Now! He threw. For one long, improbable second, the hook vanished into the rain. Then it struck the stern rail with a metallic crack, bounced once, and caught fast. The rope snapped taut. The helicopter lurched sideways so violently the guy was almost pulled through the open door. Valentina seized the back of his jacket, hauling him back in, and looked down at the line disappearing into the darkness. "Just in time!" she shouted. Guy smiled despite himself. "Story of my life." "And that's worsened," she said, pointing at the tailfire. Guy looked over his shoulder. "Marginally. It is now visible to neighboring countries. That's alarmist. It's orange." The pilot screamed something else. The helicopter emitted a metallic shriek usually associated with endings. She clipped her harness onto the rope before a guy could object. "I'm going first," she said. The helicopter shook again, the pilot shouting. The flame flickered brighter. "Negative," Guy replied. If anyone was going to do a stupid thing, it would be him. If he survived, then she could go. "Ladies first." "That probably doesn't apply here," he said. "It does when we're falling out of a burning helicopter. It's not burning." "Guy." He glanced back at the flame, which had grown from polite to conversational. One part of the tail boom seemed to still believe in flight. Another had embraced a shorter, brighter future. Flames ran along it with cheerful determination while the rotors continued overhead, chopping the evening air into panic. "Fine," he said, lightly burning, mostly peaceful. Val didn't wait for the countdown. She leaped over the edge of the wide-open door before Guy had time to offer any advice she would certainly have ignored. He watched the line vibrate as she descended through sheets of rain, disappearing and reappearing in flashes of lightning until her boots touched the yacht's upper rail. He twitched a brief, involuntary smile, the kind that shows up when competence is more attractive than anything else in the world. The first gunshot arrived a heartbeat later, rising through the storm from somewhere below. Guy followed immediately, kicking off the frame and letting the wind take him. Behind them, only a moment later, the helicopter made a final decision and stopped being a helicopter in any meaningful sense.